Hi and welcome to another episode of Delaware County Political News, Meet the Expert. I am your host, Larry DeMarco, and today we are here with Olivia Thorne, President of the League of Women Voters, Delaware County. Olivia Thorne graduated from Russell Sage College in 1965 with a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. She began her career as a mental health nurse and in 1992 started a computer business called Computer Mentors. Olivia has been actively involved with the League of Women Voters for 40 years. She has served on the local, state, and national board of the League, including 4 years as the Pennsylvania State President. She is currently President of the League of Women of Delaware County and is helping the State League starting new leagues in Pennsylvania and volunteers as a membership and leadership development coach. Olivia, thank you for being a guest on Delaware County Political News.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Olivia, how did the League of Women Voters come into formation?
Well, it started out actually before women got the right to vote. There was an organization called the National American Women's Suffrage Association, affectionately known as NAWSA, as you can understand why from listening to that title. But NAWSA had been brought together all the different suffrage organizations with the exception of the National Political Party, and they were actively working on getting the 19th Amendment ratified and passed. In the process of that, they had a meeting, their annual convention in Chicago on February 14th of 1920. Carrie Chapman Catt was their president, and she was absolutely sure that we would get the suffrage amendment passed and finished in 1920. And she had talked with 5 governors who swore that their states would ratify the amendment and it would be set. Therefore, what she did was she said, I propose that we change the name of NAWSA to the League of Women Citizens, with the understanding it will become the League of Women Voters as soon as the 19th Amendment is finalized and passed and ready to go. So we actually have our birthday celebrated on Valentine's Day, February 14th, when the amendment really didn't get ratified until August 19th of that year.
What year is this, Olivia?
1920.
Thank you.
Okay, the next part about this is that once we got the right to vote, there suddenly was this realization we only had a month in order to get everyone registered around the country. And the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania was put into an interesting situation because we only had the 7 days, of which you really only had 3 days each, to do 3 steps to get registered to vote. Believe it or not, you went the first time and you declared you wanted to vote. The second time you paid a poll tax, and that poll tax was $10, except that if you owned a property, then it didn't. But most women were not listed on the deed as the owner of the property, so they had to pay money in order to vote that first time. And then the third time you went back, picked up your card to be able to vote, and had to declare not only your name and address, but your age, height, and weight. Something that would not be exactly accepted today in doing this sort of thing. But I think the amazing thing was that they had over 1 million people women to register, and they managed to get about 35% registered in that very brief period of time.
A lot of this poll tax, this short period of time, these were all barriers set in place to prevent the success of this movement, correct?
Well, as much as it was saying, well, these are the rules and this is how it's set up, and so therefore you have to cope. And what the League found out from the very beginning was, okay, we better educate people. We better tell people what they need to go register. They made phone calls. They sent mailings. They raised money so they could put ads in papers. They did everything to make sure that women understood, yes, now you can vote. Now it's your job to get registered, and from that get to the polls on election day and know enough about the process that you'll feel comfortable voting on election day. And the League has always been considered part of the registration process across the country, and I think largely because of what they had to do in 1920 to make voting available for women. And the other thing that's sort of funny that came out of it was the League Government Academies. And in Pennsylvania, they were at Westchester State University and Bryn Mawr and a couple of other local colleges, but across the state, but mostly based on state colleges and women's colleges. And the idea was to teach women how government worked so that they'd be more informed voters. I found in the minutes from 1925 of the State League minutes that it said that they decided in 1925 that they should include men as well, because men also didn't know enough about the voting process and how government worked. And today we're talking about going back to know your government and having the kinds of lectures and things available on the web so that people can learn more about government, because it's just as true today as it was in 1920.
Yeah, your work in terms of education isn't done today.
No, it certainly isn't. It goes on and on.
Has there been discussion about changing the name from League of Voters to League of Voters from League of Women Voters?
Yes, there has been, and we started accepting men as members in 1974. Though I must tell you, the suffrage movement was filled with men, and men who worked very hard with NAWSA and with other organizations to help women get the right to vote. But I think the biggest thing that happened was in 1974 when they decided to change and say in our bylaws, we encourage men to join the League of Women Voters as well. What happened was we had a sense of, well, we should keep the name the same because everybody knows it. Well, by the late 90s and early aughts, there was really much, much more discussion of changing the name. And some marketing people that were doing work for the League of Women Voters nationally, in the national office, found that the name recognition for the League of Women Voters was second only to the American Heart Association. And it was decided that we'd be crazy to change our name, and the men stood up at the microphone at convention, and I was there at that convention, so I heard it, and they said, no, don't change the name. We don't want to lose the recognition, and think of all the other organizations that have the word league in it. Everybody knows what the League of Women Voters is. So we've been talking for years about, is there some way we could have WO/men or some other way that makes it seem more inclusive for men in the name, but I think we'll probably keep our name for the foreseeable future.
But you're making a very important point right here, Olivia. It's not about women anymore. It's about voting rights.
That's right. All voters. And we even changed our bylaws at the last national convention to say that we would take people working towards citizenship. They can be league members, because if ever there's a time when they need to know more about government and the issues, it's this time right before they become citizens. So we are no longer just saying we're with men. We really want everyone to feel that they can join the league and learn more about how government works and how they can be a part of government as a citizen of this country.
Olivia, if I can follow up on that, in modern times with the ID laws, with the current Trump administration, do you find that you have been particularly busy helping minority disenfranchisement and with immigration rights? Do you find the League has been particularly busy recently?
I think so. I can speak more about the photo ID issues because I was state president at that time and had the pleasure of testifying in Commonwealth Court on the subject of photo ID. And the thing that I can say that has gone forward is there's still places in the state of Pennsylvania where people are being told you need an ID when you don't need an ID. And there are people who come to the polls, even in Delaware County. I've seen them in my polling place saying, well, I needed to have an ID. No, you only need an ID the first time you vote in that polling place to introduce yourself so the poll workers know who you are and that you should be in this particular polling place. I think that the League has been very active nationally on photo ID across the country. It is still a huge issue, and there are still states where photo ID is still a real issue and being required. But I think also when it comes to immigration, we were probably not saying as much about that because we were more interested in redistricting at this point and in Pennsylvania. But I do know in some parts of the country, immigration was a big issue.
I'll follow up on that redistricting issue in a little bit, but before I get into that, Olivia, can you tell us how the League of Women Voters are organized?
Well, I think the best way to think of it is that we have three levels: a national level, a state level, and a local level. And the concept of the national level is that they're going to be the watchdog, the eyes and the ears, and the speaker on national issues. They're the ones that talk to members of Congress. We even have a group that goes out once a month that's made up of members from Maryland, Virginia, and the District of Columbia, who visit every legislator to talk about a key piece of legislation in that month that they hope the legislator will support. At the state level, we have the same sort of thing where you've got the state is looking out for what's happening in Harrisburg and what is going on there, and they go to hearings. They're the eyes and ears for us members locally who would not be able to get to all of these meetings and know what is going on. And then there's the local level, and the local level can be divided up by county, or it can be divided up within regions within a county. Like for us in Delaware County, we have three leagues. We have the Central Delaware County League, the Haverford League, and the Radnor League. Now, Central Delaware County really covers everything that isn't all the areas that aren't covered by Haverford and Radnor. But the concept really is at the local level, you're looking at local government, how to make your community a better place to live, how to build better communities is sort of how we tend to talk about it. But I think what we're really talking about more than anything else is at the local level, we go out and observe and see what's going on. And in Delaware County, what we also do is we go to county council meetings, or we go and meet with county representatives, elected officials, and the government workers as well, like the Election Bureau and the Voter Registration Bureau. And we meet with them annually to talk about issues that are concerning us and things we hope that we can make them aware of. And a lot of times we learn what we want to talk to them about from what people write us or call us on the phone line and tell us. So that it's always a back and forth trying to get people to understand in the elected official area and the government official area that there are people out there they may not have talked to who have definite opinions that you want to consider.
Olivia, you are giving me this information, but I want to ask you, in terms of a mission statement, what is the function or purpose of the League of Women Voters, or a short summary?
I'm going to give you a short summary because it's probably 35 words long and I've never been able to quote it exactly. But it is a nonpartisan, for the first part, nonpartisan political. Nonpartisan means we neither support nor oppose a candidate. And this goes back to Carrie Chapman Catt and the NAWSA days. And her belief was that if you started supporting or opposing candidates, they remembered when they got elected. And they were less likely to listen to you and talk to you if they thought you had voted or campaigned against them. So we have always been, nonpartisan, not supporting or opposing candidates. Political means, yes, we are involved in the political process. We want to talk about what is happening in government at all levels. But then the key part at the end of this is the informed and active participation of citizens in government. And that means you've got to learn about it, then you have to participate, and that means going out and voting, but it also means talking to other people and talking to your legislators. So we're not just one lobbyist, it's all of us become the lobbyists. We're all there telling our elected officials what it is we want them to do and how they should vote.
What does the League do during election time?
That really gets tied up into several different ways. At an election time, the first thing we're doing is registering voters. But frankly, we're registering voters year-round. It's not uncommon for us to go to fairs in the summertime and register voters, because the answer is you try to go places where people have time to fill out the registration form and get it done and ask questions if they have questions. But then when you get closer to the election, there are probably two really key areas. One is the candidate forum, or debate as it's sometimes called, and that is an attempt to have the people running for office from both parties or all parties being together, where there is civil discourse, and they are to discuss what exactly they want to do if they're elected. In other words, what is their agenda? What is their platform? What do they see as important, so that the voter has a better idea of which candidate to choose. And then the last thing is our voter's guide. And in the old days, we had a voter's guide that was published in the newspaper for free, and newspapers can't afford to do that anymore. And we used to also publish some and mail them to people who made small contributions. The reality, sadly, today is it's just too expensive. So now we have something called vote411.org, which is a online voter's guide. Every candidate is invited to participate and put up their biographical information and answer a couple of questions that the league would have. But one of them is always, what is your priority? What are your priorities? What do you think that you want to do if elected? Again, going back to what we say at the forum. But this is a chance for them, and they have unlimited space. So if they want to talk about an issue that has a lot of different parts to it, it's not difficult for them to be able to spell out in a more in-depth statement what it is that they want to do if elected.
I understand there's also programs that the league offers. Can you talk about those?
Sure. The programs really are more related to getting people to know more about issues. They're open to the public, and the process is mostly to say, for example, we did one recently on redistricting, and the idea was to have people learn more about what the difference was between redistricting and gerrymandering. And here's a website that will give you lots of information. Here are things that you can do, how you can be an activist, how you can do things to make your voice heard. I mean, Pennsylvania has some of the worst gerrymandering in the country, and we need to fix this. And there's one attempt to try to get it fixed immediately, and there's another attempt to get it fixed by 2020. And so it's a question of giving people the kind of information that will help them know more. So if they read something in the paper or they see something online, it also helps them be able to decipher what's fake news and what's real news, because they know enough about the issue to say, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. But we also try in these meetings to bring up more than one side of things whenever possible, so that people learn more. We also have meetings that are studies, and studies are a very different kind of process. They're meant for the members, and they're meant to describe, or not even say, I shouldn't say describe, they're meant to try to give the members information on all sides, not just one side. And that was another thing that Carrie Chapman Catt, as our founder, felt was very important. She wanted us to see as an organization that we were as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable, than the people we were going to go visit and talk with and try to get them to vote for our particular viewpoint. And so what you get is the pros and cons of the issue, and as many different sides as there are of the issue. And then you reach consensus, and you reach consensus much like the Quaker meeting does, where there's a lot of discussion, and the discussion tends to go on a long time while you're talking about all the different sides of it. And then once you have consensus, then you're in a situation where you can then go on and lobby for a particular position. But we never have a position that hasn't been studied first and discussed at length, and consensus has been reached.
Olivia, what is the league working on now?
Well, because we're a three-level organization, we're working on several things at different levels. We start off with redistricting in Pennsylvania. We're one of the I think we're the fourth worst state in the country for redistricting. Until we change the way we redistrict and have an independent commission, we are not going to be able to have truly fair elections. And this is as important as anything that we could do right now. And we are involved in a lawsuit with the in Commonwealth Court, which will decide whether or not anything can be changed in time for the 2018 election. But if not, what we absolutely have to have by the time we do the next official redistricting for the state, we absolutely have to have an independent council, a commission, where we can make sure that the areas are divided up, the voting districts are divided up in a fair way, so that we can have both parties feel that they have a voice that can be heard.
Olivia, do you have any inside information for us as to how it's going?
Not really right this moment, although I can tell you that I think it's next week. Stay tuned. It will be going to Commonwealth Court, and we'll be arguing our point, and it's called the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania versus the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. But we also were involved in another lawsuit that is taking place that is more federally based, and there are other lawsuits across the country on redistricting as well. But right this moment for us and voters in Pennsylvania, redistricting in Pennsylvania and the 7th Congressional District is the absolute worst, as far as it makes it in the top 5, I believe now, of badly districted areas. And when you can sit and take out Nether Providence and Swarthmore and Rose Valley and say they have to be part of Philadelphia because there are too many Democratic voters, and that doesn't help the cause when you're trying to make sure that the 7th Congressional District stays Republican. And so it's that sort of thing. We just want a fair process. It's, as from a league perspective, it's not trying to get more Democrats or more Republicans. We want something that's fair. And you have Radnor, which evidently in some places for one district, I think it's state district, has 5 different divisions. There are terrible, terrible things happening with redistricting in Pennsylvania, and we must do something to fix it. The second area is gas pipelines.
Before you move on, I actually just want to clarify. You mentioned that one of the districts were carved to be pro-democratic, and just to explain, that was done by a Republican commission to protect its own congressman at that one time. But as one of your guests explained from Fair Districting PA, that this was also done by Democrats in other states across the country.
Absolutely.
This is not done just by one party, it's done by both parties.
It is definitely done by both parties, and it is not something that you could, right now, in 2010, that particular time, both the House and Senate were controlled by and had a majority of Republicans. So therefore, the commission was made up of 5 people. The House and Senate majority and minority, the majority, I guess it was the majority leaders, and I guess the minority leaders as well. But the 5th person was someone that got to be picked by the Republicans. And since the Republicans were at that point in control of the House, Senate, and the governorship, obviously they would pick a Republican. That would have been a natural thing for them to do. But where we find the best redistricting in the country is when it's an independent commission. And an independent commission means people who've never run for office before, people who are not in a position to have a particular leaning towards one party or the other.
And Olivia, for more information about this particular issue, we can go to the League of Women Voters site, a presentation given by Carol
Kuhneholm, yes.
Which was part of the League of Women Voters Luncheon Series. Yes. You actually have guests that show, is it monthly?
Yes, we do have monthly meetings, and except for the middle of the summer and Christmas, we skip the December and the middle of the summer. But yes, the concept is that we will have a monthly meeting to talk about some issue. And
Carol Kuhneholm covered this in detail, which was also covered by Delaware County Political News, and it's also covered on my website.
Yes, and you can also go to fairdistrictspa.com. And that is another way that has every possible piece of information that you'd want. And this is part of the coalition that's been formed to make sure that we do everything possible to have a better redistricting process in place in 2020.
Olivia, I apologize for interrupting you. Please continue with the next thing that the league is working on.
Locally in Delaware County, I think, and also Chester County, it's the gas pipelines coming through to Marcus Hook. This is a process that has not had much attention from the government officials. There have been leaks, there have been all sorts of problems, and what we plan to do is invite the new county council, once it gets sworn in early January, to come out and visit some gas pipeline areas, come and learn more from people who are dealing with this, and get a chance to maybe learn firsthand, not hear it from what they are being told by Sunoco Logistics or other people who have a particular axe. We'd like them to hear both sides, if at all possible. And the third area is what we're doing nationally. And for the last 2 years, we've really been working on campaign finance reform and redistricting again, and also the healthcare issues. And the ACA is something that we feel very passionately about. We feel everybody needs to have healthcare coverage, and it needs to be affordable. And we want to see everything done to protect that. And we're very concerned, of course, that now it's showing up as part of the tax bill. And that is something that we had hoped would not happen. And but as of the news yesterday, it appears that we can assume that it is going to be part of the tax bill that's going to be voted on in the House and Senate, the compromise bill.
Olivia, you talked about these things that the league is working on now, and I understand that there's a process that the league undergoes to take action. But we're out of time, but I was hoping that you could stay for another segment after a break.
Sounds fine. I'd love to.
Thanks. We have been here with Olivia Thorne, and I am your host, Larry DeMarco. If you like this video, please stay tuned for part 2, and follow, share, and subscribe. We are signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.